Hello everybody, welcome to Amar's Game Chat, or more specifically for today's video, Amar's Nintendo Game Chat. I hope you're all doing well and staying safe. I am Amar, and today I wanted to record this video just to talk about, my thoughts going into September. We are in September now, and the rest of the year for Nintendo. Just, my excitement for the games that they're releasing this year, the expectation of a Nintendo Direct for this month, any other directs that we're expecting, between now and the end of the year, the games that they're releasing. So there's a lot to talk about. And I just wanted to make this laid back video, just talk about those things. Because normally I save like this type of discussion for like predictions for directs and like Pokemon Presents and stuff like that, or just like sometime to make like a beginning of the year video where I talk about these things. But I figured this would be a good time, beginning of September. We're expecting a September Nintendo Direct at some point this month. We have rumors and a pretty solid window of when that will happen. So I'll talk about that here. But yeah, without further ado, I hope you all enjoy this little bit of a discussion video, and let's get right into it. So yeah, I just wanted to make this video just to basically talk about some of my thoughts going into, September and the end of the year, maybe a little bit into 2026, but, mainly just focus now, especially on September, since September seems like it's going to be a pretty hectic month, or not really hectic, but very exciting month. In terms of what Nintendo will be doing. Right now we don't have any game releases slated for September, but that could quickly change with a general Nintendo Direct, or even a more specific. I guess I could talk about it a little bit, but a general Nintendo Direct, or even a Mario specific Nintendo Direct, as it is this month is also Mario's 40th anniversary. So I figured, we could have a game this month. We could obviously have Pokemon Legends ZA. In October, we have Kirby Air Riders releasing on November 20th in November, 2025. And then we don't have anything for December yet. So there's still a lot to talk about, a lot to think about, especially again in the month of September. And I think I'm going to start with the Nintendo Direct, just because obviously that's probably the biggest thing in terms of September, and then maybe like in general for the year, because we are most definitely at least going to see a couple of the games for next year in this direct. I'm assuming we already know obviously what's coming out this year is Pokemon Legends EA, Kirby Air Riders, Metroid Prime 4 Beyond is still slated for this year. Hyrule Warriors Age of Imprisonment is currently slated for this winter, so it could still come out this year, but it also can come out early next year. We have the Dusk Bloods, which it seems like it's going to be a Nintendo Switch 2 exclusive, at least a time exclusive, but it is published by From Software and developed by From Software from what we know. We also have Tomodachi Life Living the Dream, Rhythm Heaven Groove, and Splatoon Raiders. So we have a bunch of new titles that they can definitely give updates to in this direct as well. I would expect, I'm not going to go too much into predictions just because I will have a video out once the direct is officially announced related to predictions. We'll get into the timing of the direct in a little bit, but so I'll get into those predictions when that direct's officially announced, and we have like we have a direct date and the airtime, and how long the direct will run. But I would expect probably Metroid Prime 4 is still going to release this year. I don't think it's coming out this month. It would be cool, if they announced like the date is like the end of September in this direct. But I think we do get September release. It will be something Mario related, so we'll get into that in a minute. But that's direct probably will have like Metroid Prime 4 Beyond release date. It might have some new footage for Legends ZA, so maybe a new Mega Evolution. Maybe some new footage for Kirby Air Riders. But my expectation with that game is that we will get another Nintendo Direct probably in maybe the end of this month or early October to talk about pretty much any modes that they weren't able to talk about in the previous direct, and then the little bit of a teaser for what seems like it's going to be a story mode at the end of the last Kirby Air Riders direct. So I think they're going to do another direct, so we probably won't see too much of it here, but I could see it possibly showing up in like a sizzle reel where they're talking about like what Nintendo has for the next couple of months, from this point and then to like May of next year. Um, or they could do, a new trailer for it and they show off like a new mode or something like that. But um and then I would expect to see Hyrule Warriors Age of Imprisonment just because I think this is where it's going to get its release date, or at least a much more narrowed down window. So if it's coming out this year, I think it's going to get a release date for like December. But if it's not, I could see it definitely being like they give it the available in February of 2026 window or something like that. Um, and then we have other games. We have the Dusk Bloods, which I don't think we're gonna see that here. I think that's definitely something that they could do, um, at another event like the Game Awards later this year. They could show off a new trailer there. It depends on when it's coming out, obviously. So it could show up in this direct, but I'm not sure how large of a presence it will have. It honestly just depends on when it's releasing. But that could show up there. Um, you know, Splatoon Raiders. That'll go into a little bit of discussion I want to have towards the end of this video. But Splatoon Raiders is not really even slated for any date right now, so um, that honestly could be like a summer next year game, maybe even a fall next year game, depending on when they're how far they are in development of that game. Um, and then um, we have the two Switch games in the form of Tomodachi Life, Living the Dream. I'm expecting that game to come out in the first half of next year, maybe not in the early, the first 3 months or so, but I would expect by the summer, at least in the West or in um, the Northern Hemisphere. I would expect it to come out in the summer, obviously Southern Hemisphere winter, around like when schools start to close for a little bit. So everyone can just sit back. That'd be pretty much like the Animal Crossing, what they did with like Animal Crossing New Leaf, and to a certain extent with Animal Crossing New Horizons. They had that out before, the summer. And then Rhythm Heaven is a game I am expecting earlier than Tomodachi Life. I could definitely see that releasing in the first 3 months of next year. It is slated for 2026, so outside of a very crazy surprise, I am expecting that game to still hold on to its 2026 release date, and not come out like in December or something. But besides that, there obviously this direct will have probably some new game announcements from both Nintendo and their third-party partners. Obviously, since this channel is focused very much on Nintendo, the Nintendo titles are what we mainly talk about here, and I'm expecting some announcements to also be here in that regard. Maybe not like the biggest announcements, but we are coming towards the end of the announced Switch 2 lineup, so all we have really left exclusive-wise is Kirby Air Riders and the Dusk Bloods. So we definitely do need to see what's next after, most prominently, Kirby Air Riders. The Dusk Bloods, again, it is a Switch 2, at least time exclusive. I think it could be a Switch 2 just general exclusive, but it's definitely just at this point, it's some sort of exclusive for the Switch 2. And so, but that's not obvious. From what we know right now, that isn't necessarily published by Nintendo. So right now, on Nintendo's own release schedule, for what we know, it's Kirby Air Riders. That is the last Switch 2 title. So I would expect actually, Kirby Air Riders and Hyrule Warriors Age of Imprisonment. It depends on when Age of Imprisonment's coming out. It could come out in November too. So we have to see about that. But Kirby Air Riders and Age of Imprisonment are the last titles we have from Nintendo on the release slate. And so I would expect, to see a couple of different games. A couple of Switch 2 announcements. We don't really see they don't necessarily need to do Switch 1 announcements, since at this point we still have 4 games that are slated for the Switch, and 2 of them are also slated for the Switch too. But we have 4 games slated for the Switch, 1 that haven't released yet in the form of Pokemon Legends ZA, Metroid Prime 4 Beyond, Tomodachi Life, Living the Dream, and Rhythm Heaven Groove. They could announce 1 more for like early next year that maybe is a cross-gen, like Pokemon Legends EA and Metroid Prime 4 Beyond. They could announce that for like a new Fire Emblem game, the highly rumored Fire Emblem 4 remake. But I'm not going to go too much more into predictions for this direct. I think what I'm just expecting from this direct is, a lot more details on the games we already know about, and then a couple of first party announcements, which could play into the other topic at hand, with this month also being Super Mario series, the Super Mario series' 40th anniversary. Um, we are expecting some news on the Mario series this month just because of that. Obviously, they have always celebrated the anniversary to a certain extent. Not necessarily like through a direct announce like directs. I think 2020 was like the first time they ever did like a full-on presentation just for the anniversary, but they had Mario Maker release in 2015, for the anniversary of the series. Obviously, we had the 2020 anniversary, 35th anniversary direct release, around this time actually of the beginning of the month, for 30th anniversary. And I think we should expect some news this month for the 40th anniversary. I have been going back and forth on what I'm thinking, like the form of this news will come in. Basically, because I don't know if they're gonna do a anniversary specific Nintendo Direct this time around, especially if they are doing a general Nintendo Direct, which I think is the very much like the wide assumption that we are getting a general Nintendo Direct on the rumored, range of September 10th to September 12th. I'm honestly I think it honestly will happen on September 12th. I know that date has been like up in discussion. It's a Friday, so would Nintendo really do like a huge direct on a Friday, something they haven't really ever done before? And I think they are going to do it that way because I think that that direct will align with the 40th anniversary, where I think a lot of the new announcements, maybe not all of them, obviously, I think we're going to have like one or two Nintendo announcements that are not Mario related, but I think the 40th anniversary will, or like what would have been a 40th anniversary Nintendo Direct for the Super Mario series will be blended into this Direct. So that could honestly make it a super long Direct for all we know. But I wouldn't be surprised if they did that. And I also wouldn't be surprised if they did a 40th anniversary Direct, just because it makes sense. You know, Obviously Mario's a lot bigger now than it was in 2015 or even 2020. And in 2020, they also included a lot of merchandising in that direct. So they could do another 40th, they could do a 40th anniversary direct focused on it, and they talk about the Mario movie there, and, a couple of Mario announcements for the games, and, some merchandising, maybe some new Lego sets, stuff like that. But I do think, at least on the gaming side, they will blend the general direct with Mario announcements and make it like a Mario centric general direct, to a certain, like in that vein. And I won't go too much into what I will predict for that, because if we get a Mario 40th anniversary direct, then that changes everything. But I would expect, when I'm talking about September, I am, in like a possible release, I'm expecting it to be a Mario release. So I'm expecting it to be something like we got with 3D All Stars. Maybe not 3D All Stars itself. So like a 3D All Stars Nintendo Switch 2 edition, or something like a major collection for like New Super Mario Brothers or something like that. But I'm expecting this September release to be related to the Mario series. It could be a shadow drop, like Mario 35, like a Mario 35 equivalent, like Mario 40th, like a Mario 40, for NSO members. It could be something like Super Mario Sunshine, going to Nintendo Switch Online through the GameCube, GameCube app for expansion pack members. Or it could be something totally different. It could be a Dr. Mario Nintendo Switch 2 Nintendo Switch game. Or it could be something like a Nintendo Switch 2 edition for an existing Mario game that released on the Nintendo Switch, like Super Mario Bros. Wonder, or again, 3D All Stars gets like Mario Galaxy added to it, or something, Mario Galaxy 2 added to it. But in that regard, that is honestly what I'm expecting on the direct side. I'm very excited for these possible, at least I'm very excited for the general direct. I think that's pretty much a guarantee at this point. I would be very excited if we also got a Mario direct. I would be excited if we got, another Kirby Air Riders direct at some point this month. we could get a Metroid Prime 4 Direct as well if they don't do any news. Well, I guess they don't necessarily need to do, a Metroid Prime 4 Direct, like, in general, but even without, like, news in this Direct. But yeah, like, if they don't date it in this Direct, I would expect a Metroid Prime 4 Direct at some point. But they could obviously also announce a Metroid Prime 4 Direct while giving it a release date in the general Direct. And they say tune in to the Metroid Prime 4 Direct on September. Let me look at the date. September 24th. And they give the game a date in the general Direct. And then for more information, a new trailer, much more in-depth look at the game, please tune in on September 24th for a 20-minute Metroid Prime 4 Direct or something like that. But for me, for Direct-wise, I am expecting General Direct at some point this month. I'm expecting it on September 12th, which, again, I think that'd be just really fun in general, just to have a Friday Nintendo Direct. But, I'm expecting it in that range of, like, September 10th, September 11th, September 12th, somewhere in there. But for me, just because I think it also aligns with the Mario anniversary, I think they're going to do it on September 12th, which I think is just going to be really fun. But, again, we don't have any games releasing this month, and I can't really speculate too much on that end. I can't really talk about a game that doesn't exist yet, if they are planning a game for this month. But I'm expecting this month to be still pretty big, not just with this Direct, but I'm expecting, news on the other topic I really want to talk about, Pokemon Legends ZA. I'm expecting to see a couple of other megas, not just even in the general Direct. I would expect maybe maybe two new megas in the general Nintendo Direct, if that's, if we do get a trailer there. But they have been revealing one mega for the last 2 weeks. They revealed Mega Victory Bell close to 2 weeks ago, or close to 3 weeks ago, and then they revealed Mega Halucha last week. So I would expect another Mega Evolution reveal at least at some point this month. If they're doing it, multiple times, if they're doing one a week from until release, it's very possible you get 3 to 4 new Mega reveals, maybe even more than that this month. And I'm very, very excited to see those Mega Evolutions. So, I'm very excited for Legends ZA to release. We are at this point less than 2 months away from it. I believe we're around like 6 weeks away from its release. So we could see, anywhere from like 4 to 6 new megas. I think that'd be pretty cool. But I'm very excited for it. Obviously, I do have the Lumiose data log and Lumiose dialogue on this channel. Two series that I really wanted to do a lot more with before its release, but I think it's gonna be a lot more. I think I'm gonna have a couple more videos for both of those series before the game's release. But I think I'll also just focus those series on being post-release series. Where I talk about some of my thoughts on the games. Maybe I'll do like little gameplay tidbits, and that will be like Lumiose dialogue, and stuff like that. Leading into Pokemon Day next year. Will we get like a new announcement for Legends ZA like we did with Legends Arceus, in the same presents that they announced Scarlet and Violet? We are expecting Generation 10 next year. The one thing I didn't mention with the Direct is I am expecting the next big game for Nintendo to be announced in that Direct. Not Pokemon Legends Gen 10, that will be saved for next year's Pokemon Presents on Pokemon Day, but I would expect, whatever is the big announcement, the big holiday game, as some may say, or just like the big game released next year, like the game that will, besides Pokemon, sell like 10 million copies. That could be Luigi's Mansion 4, and that's why I'm also thinking that they may tie the 40th anniversary into this Direct, just because Luigi's Mansion 4 is a huge announcement. I think you'd want to have that in like a Direct that like everyone will be able to watch. Like not everyone will be able to watch, but everyone will definitely tune in for. Animal Crossing, obviously. Splatoon 4. The reason why I mentioned, like, we'll talk about Splatoon a little bit later. Splatoon Raiders, I think, is going to take the spot of Splatoon 4 for a little bit. So I don't think we're going to see Splatoon 4 next year, but something, I think we're going to see a big game announced in that Direct, and and that game will release alongside Pokemon Generation 10, which is very, very cool. But for Legends EA, I'm very, very excited just to see and play that game on October 16th. The time kind of has flew by since its announcement last year on Pokemon Day, but now it's kind of getting kind of slow. The wait, we're like, it's like we're actively waiting for it now. So time's starting to move kind of slow in that regard. Um, you know, but I'm very excited for it. I'm very excited just to play it, seeing the new mega, see the whole new story, play with the new battle mechanics. I think it's really cool. I think the new battle mechanics are really cool. um Obviously it's a lot different than we have had in previous Pokemon games, so it's definitely gonna take a lot to get used to, I feel like. But this is also Pokemon, so I'm expecting the tutorial to be kind of vast and showing us like all the new mechanics and everything. So I'm not worried about like not being able to like play the game and enjoy the game because of the new system. I think it's gonna take a little bit, like a little while to get used to like having to time your attacks based on other, like your opposing Pokemon's attacks and what attacks they may use. You use Protect, will that be fast enough? Stuff like that. So I'm very excited for that. And will we see that in the next generation game? Maybe not. But I think we're definitely at the Legend series. They're going to keep innovating in that direction, either with the catching mechanics or the battle mechanics, which makes me very excited for what could be, a Generation 5 Legends game, or Generation 7 Legends game, Generation 2 Legends game, maybe a Generation 1 Legends game. But makes me really excited for that series alongside the, actual, mainline. Well, no, Legend games are main series, duologies that we usually get every year. Not every year, every generation. But yeah, I'm very excited for that. I'm very excited just to play Legends EA, and obviously I think Legends EA content on my channel has been like the majority of the content recently, and well, maybe not Legends EA specifically, but Pokemon content. I think that kind of speaks to how excited I am for the game. But in general, I'm just very excited for it. I think it really helps the Nintendo Switch 2 lineup this year for it to not only be on the Switch 2 and like have its own version, but for Nintendo to be marketing it as a Switch 2 game. Like, since the Switch 2 was announced and since we got confirmation that it would be receiving a Switch 2 edition, I don't think any of the trailers since then have even started with the like Switch splash screen. It's always been the Switch 2, like the new Switch 2 splash screen. So they're definitely trying to market it as a Switch 2 game, which makes me very excited. They see it as that. And I'm assuming that's what they're also going to do with Metroid Prime 4. When we see Metroid Prime 4 for the first time since April, I'm expecting that trailer to also start with the Metroid Prime, I mean, not Metroid Prime, the Nintendo Switch 2 splash screen, which makes me very excited for that game as well. But, besides that, the only other release that we have on the schedule for the year is Kirby Air Riders, and we just got that direct a couple weeks ago, so there's not really much more to say about that besides me also being very excited for that release. That'll be the first time I ever really play Kirby Air Riders, like Kirby Air Ride in general, but also Kirby Air Riders. That'll be also my first time in general. But I'm actually very excited. It looks like a very fun game, both Air Ride and Air Riders. I'm kind of hoping that they do add Air Ride to GameCube NSO at some point. Maybe not this year, because I don't think they were gonna want to like compete with Air Ride. Though it is also just like the GameCube is exclusive to Nintendo Switch 2, so it's not like it's like a thing like where will people that play Air Ride like either feel like they got everything that they can get from the series with them releasing on GameCube, or what does it help advertise Air Riders? Does it detract from people wanting to play Air Riders? Stuff like that. That's obviously something Nintendo has to approach, not me as a person. But I'm very excited for Air Riders, and I'm very excited for seeing if they, the new modes that they are also kind of teasing with the way the direct ended, you know, I think we're getting a story mode. I think we're getting at least one more racing mode. You know, from what I've read online, you know, the three main modes in Kirby Air Ride was Top Ride, City Trial, and then Air Ride. They didn't show anything of Top Ride in this direct, so I would expect to see something for Top Ride in this direct, if that mode is even in the game, or if they replaced it with something else. But City Trial looks really awesome, so I'm very excited to do that. I'm very excited to play that online. And then obviously the Air Ride, like the actual Air Ride mode, also looks pretty cool. So I'm excited to play that online. I'm excited just to play the game in general. I think that is those two games, Pokemon Legends EA and Kirby Air Ride, and then Air Riders, and then Metro Prime 4, and maybe one more game, you know, Mario, smaller Mario title, or Hyrule Warriors Age of Imprisonment. Pretty much wrapping up the end of this year. For the Switch 2, and kind of also the Switch 1. You know, obviously Switch 1's not getting Air Riders, but it's very possible, you know, that the Mario game that we could see Shadow Drop this month or release this month also is a Nintendo Switch 1 game. And we might even get another Nintendo Switch 1 release this year. You know, something like the highly rumored Yoshi's Woolly World plus Poochie, you know, Switch edition that was kind of leaked, but also not necessarily leaked. It was only really leaked in the like the Blackbird's compatibility Switch 2 screen, where they could have put Kirby's. I believe they could. Maybe Kirby's Craft World. I mean, not Kirby. Yoshi's Craft World is already on there, but the screenshot that they included was like, the art that they included was from Yoshi's Woolly World, you know, and it seemed like it was like made for the Switch 2, or the Switch, in that art. So they could have Yoshi's Woolly World just waiting to be released on the Switch, at some point this year or early next year. But, you know, we didn't really talk much about Metroid Prime 4, and I think that's just because I don't really know what to talk about there yet, since we don't really know when it's releasing. You know, it is slated for this year still, so that is very exciting. But I think once we see it again, because I think there's a couple of things I think that are guarantees to show up in the next general Nintendo Direct. Metroid Prime 4 Beyond is one of them. You know, I think one of the two 3DS, though Rhythm Heaven and Tomodachi Life last feud on the 3DS. I think the next, you know, one of those two games are going to show up in this direct, and I think Splatoon Raider shows up in this direct. And those are like 3-ish guarantees that I have. But again, I think Metroid Prime 4 gets a date. I think once we get that date, once we see more of the game, once we see if they're going to do a Nintendo Direct for Metroid Prime 4, I think then we can talk a lot more about it. Just in a general sense, the game looks really awesome. The demos that we've gotten for it in terms of like what they did in Nintendo Switch Experience, Switch 2 Experience, but they did, I believe it was playable at Gamescom. I don't believe it's been playable at PAX East or maybe, or I don't know if it's PAX East or PAX West, but I don't think it's been playable at PAX the last couple of days, or Fan Expo Canada. So that I don't know if maybe that speaks to it possibly being delayed. I don't think it does. I think it's just, you know, because obviously it was playable at Gamescom. So I don't think, maybe they feel like they've already shown off enough of the game at these demo events, you know, here in the West, in the United States and North America. So they don't feel like they have to, you know, demo it again. But again, I'm expecting a release date very, very soon for that game. Or, you know, if not a release date, a release window that's like changed 2026, but one that's like very, very, very specific, you know, like a February 2026, instead of like the general 2025 we have right now. But I do want to end the video just talking a little bit about 2026. What we know obviously is Tomodachi Life Living the Dream, The Dusk Bloods, Rhythm Heaven Groove, and Splatoon Raiders. You know, by February of next year, we should know most of next year's lineup. You know, I'm expecting, again, 1 or 2 announcements in this direct that helps to highlight what games we'll be seeing next year. But We won't obviously see all the 2026 games in this direct because they will save at least one or two of them for either a February direct next year or a June direct or somewhere like in between those. They'll save, I think, 2 or 3 announcements for that. But obviously, I think Rhythm Heaven looks really cool. I think Tomodachi Life Living the Dream looks really cool. Splatoon Raiders we haven't seen much of, but I'm very, very excited to see more of that. The Duskbloods is kind of interesting in the way that I don't think that's a game I would specifically play a lot of, but it definitely is a very cool game. So I'm looking forward to seeing more of it, especially with now we also have Elden Ring coming to the Switch to again, like Metroid, slated for this year, but it might not release this year. We have to see about that. But I don't know. Again, like I said, I think in February, we will at least see part Nintendo's holiday in February, with the Pokemon Presents. Maybe even a little earlier than February. Who knows? Maybe they do a surprise Pokemon Presents like they did in January of 2020, where they announced the Legends ZA DLC, and then they even go bigger than that, and they announced not Scarlet, but Generation 10. In January or something like that. But I think by the end of February, we will see, Generation 10. We should maybe know what Nintendo's holiday game is. Nintendo published, or not, Pokemon's published by Nintendo. Nintendo developed EPD game for the holiday, stuff like that. But that is, pretty much all I had that I wanted to talk about today. Maybe I'll do a video like this every month. It'd be get the October one, we don't really know much about it yet. What we're going to be seeing in October, besides Pokemon Legends ZA. The one other thing I didn't really talk about yet was the Mario movie. And that is because, we haven't, we could see it this month. And I think a Mario Direct would make that a lot more of a, more likely that we see it this month. But I also think we will see at least a trailer for it by the end of the year. It is releasing in early April, so we're not that far away from it. But when the first movie was coming out, they did 2 Mario movie directs to release 2 trailers for it. I believe in October and November, and then we had the last trailer release in March of that year, March of the release year, so March 2023. And so I would kind of expect them to follow the similar pattern. Mario movie direct in October or November. Maybe they only do 1 trailer this year, since they don't have to convince as many people now about the movie. So maybe they only do 1 trailer at the end of October, early November, and then they do another trailer on Mario Day next year, and then the movie releases a month later, something like that. But that's very exciting. It's very exciting. And that was kind of also what I was referring to about talking about what directs we will see after this month. I think that's the only direct that we really have close to a guarantee on seeing. That a Mario movie direct. I think that's the only direct that that I would personally say we can confidently say they're going to do after this general direct. In the second week of September, which is also very exciting. I kind of really wanted to do this video to talk about this direct a little bit, just because it is coming very fast. This will be the first general direct that we got since April, so it's very, very exciting. Just to see, we're gonna see some new Nintendo games. We're gonna see some news on Nintendo games that are very close to releasing or will get release dates, and so I think it's just gonna be a very, very good show. I'm just very, very excited for it, and I just can't wait to see what they have, and they've been working on for so long. But without further ado, I think that is all I have for you all today. So I hope you all enjoyed this shortish. It was a 35-minute video. I'm just talking about the Nintendo for the rest of the year and early next year. But I will see you all very, very soon. I will have, as long as nothing crazy happens, I will have a predictions video for the direct, probably a bingo card for the direct, and then obviously a reaction for when the direct is airing. So I'm very excited for that. Again, I'm very excited just to see all these new games, all the news on upcoming games, everything like that. But that is all I have for you all today. So I hope you all enjoyed this video, and I will see you on the next one. So make sure you're doing Happy, some rhymes with my previous name, Generic Happy, and goodbye. I hope you're all very, very excited for the rest of the year.